Well, good afternoon, everybody. For those of you whom I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, my name is John Furlong, and I'm Director of the Department of Education here in the University of Oxford. And we are hosting this afternoon. I am absolutely delighted with the number of people here. We're full up, and there is an overflow lecture theatre upstairs, which we're being beamed up into as well. People have come from the length and breadth of Great Britain, and even from overseas. There is a group from Reggio Emilia who've come over especially for today. Here they are. Benvenuti. Anybody else come from overseas for today? Yes? Where from?
Canada.
From Canada? From Sweden? US. Absolutely astounding. You're all enormously welcome. Of course, this afternoon, it isn't just the lecture that Professor Bruner is giving us. We're also, later on in the afternoon, opening a new building called the Jerome Bruner Building in the Department of Education. And we have the Under-Secretary of State, Andrew Adonis, for schools. Andrew Adonis is coming to join us for that part of the afternoon's activities. When we dreamed up this idea of naming a new building after Jerry Bruner, who used to work in those buildings when he was the Watts Professor of Psychology here in the 70s, when we dreamed up that idea, I had no idea that he would actually encourage him to come over from New York. And then when he said he would come over, I had no idea he would actually agree to give a lecture. Just absolutely fantastic. And I'm delighted that he's here. I have to say, I'm not actually the sort of person who puts academics on pedestals. I think most of us do a reasonable day's work, a reasonable day's pay, and I don't actually see us as particularly special. Except, and there are a few people in my 35 years as academic that actually are different. People who can actually make the hairs on the back of my neck stand up on end. I think of Basil Bernstein in the field of education. I mean, Basil was in many ways a quite difficult man. But my goodness, if you engaged with him or saw him engaged with somebody else or actually worked on his materials, it was just the intellect was just astounding and wonderful and changed my way of seeing things. Another person who did that for me as a young sociologist, I was a bit embarrassed he's here, because I designed to say this before I knew Shelley Horsey was going to be in the room. But Shelley, when I was a young sociologist working, I was absolutely transformed by reading your work and actually helped me form very, very important questions that actually were to set me on my career in many important ways. Another person that actually really transformed my life, a philosopher, was working with Paul Hurst in Cambridge. Paul and I worked on a couple of projects together and actually wrote together. And when I went to see him with my first versions of writings, it wasn't the hair on the back of my neck that was standing on end, my knees were knocking. But there was this immense intellect that sort of went right through what I was doing and challenged and lifted me and transformed the quality of my work enormously. I have to say that Jerry Bruner is another one of those very, very small handful of people, for me, who've had an enormous impact on my thinking. I actually came across his work somewhat by accident, really. I didn't read his work as an undergraduate. I was a sociologist, and nor as a doctoral student. But when I was a postdoctoral student, I was in Manchester undertaking a sociolinguistic analysis of classrooms. And we were interested in trying to find a classroom where I would work as an ethnographer for a year that was trying to do things somewhat differently. The school system was trying to work differently. And we chose this school in North Manchester, called the Abraham Moss Centre, which was very innovative at the time. And I got myself attached to their social studies department and was part of the first year social studies course that they were working on there. The course they actually happened to be studying was MACOS, Manor Course of Study, which, of course, Jerry and his team from Harvard had been involved in developing in the 1960s. He also told me yesterday that was the course that Ronald Reagan, when he was governor of California, threw out as left-wing subversion. Why should, Reagan asked, young people in America want to study other cultures if they're going to have a critical perspective on their own culture? Why should they do that? This was obviously left-wing subversion. Well, California's loss was North Manchester's gain. But what I started to then read was Bruner's works and started to see that behind that stunning curriculum was also this very, very strong and exciting intellect that embraced anthropology, philosophy, cultural psychology, and a whole range of other fields, and was also deeply concerned with young people's learning. It was very, very exciting stuff. It's another person whose work I read and makes the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Now, introducing someone as eminent as this is actually impossible. I'm not going to bother to give you his list of books or his list of honours or anything like that. All I want to say is, on the Department of Education here in Oxford, Jerry, we're enormously honoured that you've come to talk to us this afternoon and agreed to have a building named after you. And all of us here, I know, are looking forward to hearing what you have to say for your lecture this afternoon. Professor Jerry Bruner.